have been told that the pain in your knees is from wear and tear, like a rusty old machine that is breaking down. But what if that is a complete and a total lie? What if your joints are not a machine at all, but they are a living and a very beautiful garden that is just waiting to be tended? Welcome back to Healthier Daily, the channel where we give you the simple science-backed truths to live a stronger and more independent life after 60. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Carter, and to be our wise master gardener in this very important and very hopeful discussion, we are joined by a physician who has spent his life teaching the profound wisdom of looking at the body as a living, breathing, and healing system. It is our great honor to welcome Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara.
Thank you for having me, Ben. For too long, we have treated our bodies like they are machines. When a part of it breaks, we think that it is finished, that it can never be truly repaired. But a garden is different. A garden is alive. And with the right and the proper care, a garden can always be brought back to a state of beautiful life. This is so very important. I had a patient, a wonderful woman who was an avid gardener. Her beautiful garden was her greatest joy in life. But she stopped going into her garden because her doctor told her that her knee was worn out and that any more movement would only make it worse. Her belief in this old and tired story was stealing the greatest joy of her life.
And her story is at the very heart of our guide today. Dr. Hinohara is going to walk us through this profound and very hopeful new philosophy. In our journey today, we will first debunk the machine theory of wear and tear. We will then embrace the garden philosophy and understand the science of the garden. After that, we will hear the powerful story of another of Dr. Hinohara's patients, which we will call the gardener's story. And finally, we will give you the beginner's gardening guide to be able to start tending your own beautiful joints. It is a true blessing to have this kind of knowledge, to be able to see our bodies not as decaying machines, but as beautiful living and blessed gardens that are capable of profound and lasting healing. If you are ready to learn this new and very hopeful way of thinking about your body, please type the number 1 in the comments below. As you are watching this on a Friday evening, it is the perfect time to plant a new seed of hope for your health this weekend. And be sure to subscribe to our channel. It's completely free, and you will not want to miss this beautiful and life-changing information. Okay, doctor, let's begin our journey of understanding. As our viewers are spending their weekend thinking about their health, let's start by dismantling this old and very fearful idea that is holding so many people back. Why is the machine a wrong and a very damaging metaphor for our joints? Let's officially debunk the machine theory.
Yes, we must begin by removing the old and the dead weeds from our garden before we can plant any new and beautiful seeds. The machine metaphor is a very dangerous weed, and it is dangerous because it creates a great deal of fear. If you truly believe that your knee is like a car tire and that it only has a limited number of miles on it before it will wear out, you will of course be afraid to drive. You will stop moving. And as we will soon see in our beautiful garden philosophy, that is the worst possible thing that you can do for your joints.
So it is a philosophy that is rooted in fear. Let's look at the hard evidence that dismantles this old theory. The first and the most powerful piece of evidence that we have is what we can call the sedentary paradox. Doctor, can you explain this beautiful paradox to our viewers?
The paradox is a very simple one. If our joints were truly like machines that wear out from too much use, then the people who use their joints the least should have the healthiest joints. But what does the science actually show us?
The science in this is so very important, shows the exact opposite. As the source text for our video so clearly states, and as numerous large-scale population studies have now confirmed, a sedentary lifestyle is a major and a very powerful risk factor for developing osteoarthritis. Research that has been published in respected journals like Osteoarthritis and Cartilage has shown that moderate and very regular physical activity, like walking or even jogging, does not increase a person's risk of knee arthritis in their healthy joints. The machine theory simply cannot explain this powerful and very obvious contradiction.
So the evidence that we have on the ground does not match the old story. Now, for my second piece of evidence, let us look to the stars. The brave astronauts who travel into space into a zero-gravity environment, they experience almost no wear and tear on their bodies at all. There is no force of gravity that is pulling on their joints. So according to the old and tired machine theory, their joints should become healthier and stronger than ever before. But what actually happens to them in space?
Another brilliant question. And the science here is absolutely fascinating, and it is the absolute key to this entire conversation. As you said, Doctor, the astronauts suffer from a rapid and a very significant loss of both their bone density and their muscle mass. And this is because our bodies are a beautiful and a very intelligent stimulus response system. The scientific principle that governs this is called mechanotransduction. It is a complex word for a very simple and a very beautiful idea. Your living tissues, and this includes your precious cartilage and your strong bones, are constantly listening to the mechanical signals that are coming from their environment. When you apply a healthy and a reasonable stress to them, like the gentle force of walking, it sends a powerful and a beautiful signal to all of the cells that says we are needed, we must be strong. And the beautiful cells respond by rebuilding and by reinforcing the tissue. But when you remove that healthy stress, as happens in the weightlessness of space, you are sending the exact opposite signal. The body hears a very clear message. This tissue is no longer needed. It is a waste of our precious resources. And so it begins to break it down. So you see, it is the lack of healthy stress, the lack of use that causes the entire system to weaken.
So the body is always responded to the signals that we give it. This brings me to my final piece of evidence against the machine theory. We do know, as the source text correctly notes, that a major and a very traumatic joint injury, like a fracture or a bad ligament tear, can often lead to arthritis later in life. The old story would say that this is because the joint is now damaged goods. But what is the deeper and the more important truth?
This is one of the most important concepts in all of modern rehabilitation, Doctor. It is a very common phenomenon that is called arthrogenic muscle inhibition. After a major injury to a joint, the brain, in a very wise and a very beautiful attempt to be able to protect that joint from any more harm, will often turn down the volume on all of the muscles that surround that joint. The powerful quadriceps muscle, for example, can almost completely shut down after a serious knee injury. If this is not corrected with proper and with gentle physical therapy, the person can develop a long-term and a very debilitating pattern of muscle imbalance and of weakness. This causes them to move differently, and it puts an abnormal amount of stress on the joint cartilage for many, many years. So it is not the initial wear of the injury that is the cause of the arthritis. It is the long-term lack of proper use and of healthy stimulation that follows the injury. The use it or lose it principle is at work once again.
So, as you can see, when we look at all of the real scientific evidence, the old and the very fearful story of the machine completely falls apart. It is a story that is not based in science. It is a story that is based in fear. And now it is time for us to replace that old and fearful story with a new one. A beautiful story of life, of growth, and of great and of beautiful hope.
It is a truly blessed and a very profound thing to be able to use our intelligence and our God-given reason to be able to dismantle these old and these fearful ideas and to be able to make way for a more empowering and a more truthful understanding of our beautiful God-given bodies. So we have now successfully debunked the old and the very fearful machine theory of our joints. We have proven that it is a story that is not based in science, and it is a story that creates a great deal of unnecessary fear and inactivity. So, doctor, if our joints are not like cold and dying machines that are simply wearing out, then what are they? This now brings us to your beautiful and very hopeful garden philosophy.
Yes, this is the new and the beautiful story that I want all of our viewers to plant in their hearts this weekend. Your joints are not cold and dead machines. They are living and very beautiful gardens. They are dynamic, they are adaptable, and they are constantly changing in response to the beautiful and loving care that you give them. And the two most important things that any beautiful garden needs to be able to thrive are, of course, water and sunlight. And for the beautiful garden that is in your joints, the water and the sunlight is movement.
And this is such a beautiful and a scientifically accurate metaphor, doctor. Let's look at the deep and the very hopeful science of this living garden that is inside of all of our joints. The beautiful, the smooth, and the slippy substance that lines the end of all of our bones is, of course, our cartilage. And for a very long time, many scientists and many doctors believed that our cartilage, once it was damaged, could not be repaired. But we now know from modern science that this is simply not true. Your cartilage is a living and a very dynamic tissue. And deep inside of this beautiful cartilage are the seeds of your garden. These are very special and very intelligent cells that are called chondrocytes. And these chondrocytes are constantly and silently working. In a healthy and in a very balanced system, they are always breaking down the old and the worn-out cartilage cells, and at the very same time, they are replacing them with new and healthy cartilage cells. It is a constant and a very beautiful cycle of regeneration and of renewal.
And in the condition of osteoarthritis, this beautiful and very delicate balance has been thrown off. The weeding of the garden, which is the breaking down of the old and damaged cells, has now become much faster than the seeding of the garden, which is the production of the new and the healthy cells. And the overall effect of this imbalance is that the beautiful garden of our cartilage begins to become thin and weak over time.
So how do we encourage more of the beautiful seeding in our garden, doctor? How do we stimulate those beautiful chondrocyte cells to be able to grow and to create new healthy cartilage?
We do it with the beautiful and life-giving water and the sunlight of gentle movement.
That is exactly right. As we learn from the scientific principle of mechanotransduction movement is the most powerful stimulus for our joints. The gentle and the very repetitive compression and decompression of the cartilage that happens when you are simply walking is the direct and powerful signal that tells those beautiful chondrocyte seeds to wake up and to start producing new and healthy cartilage. Movement is the beautiful signal that tells the garden that it is needed and that it must be strong. It is the gentle rain that delivers all of the precious and the healing nutrients to the soil of your joints. Now, doctor, you have a very powerful and a very famous analogy that proves this point beyond all doubt, and that is the story of the plaster cast.
Yes, this is the ultimate and the most beautiful proof of the use it or lose it principle, or as I prefer to say for our new philosophy, the tend it or lose it principle for our beautiful garden. Imagine for a moment that you have a beautiful and a very healthy garden in your yard. And now imagine that you cover that beautiful garden with a thick and a very dark tarp for just 6 weeks. You block all of the beautiful water and all of the beautiful sunlight from being able to reach it. When you finally and bravely remove that dark tarp after those 6 weeks, what do you find? You find a dead and a very withered patch of earth. The beautiful garden has died from simple and profound neglect. Our joints are exactly the same. When a person breaks a bone in their leg and they are put into a plaster cast for a few weeks, the joints that are inside the cast, even if they were perfectly healthy before the injury, are now covered by that dark and heavy tarp of inactivity. And when that cast is finally removed, what do we find? We always find a joint that is stiff, that is weak, and that is very, very painful. The beautiful garden of the joint has begun to wither from a simple and a profound lack of use. Inactivity is the dark tarp that we place over our beautiful garden.
It is a truly blessed and a very profound wisdom to be able to understand that our bodies are not dying and decaying machines, but that they are these beautiful and living gardens that have been given to us to tend with a great deal of love and with gentle and consistent care. This is such a powerful and a very hopeful way of thinking about our health doctor, and we love sharing it with our global community. To help us see our global community, please let us know what city, state, or country you are watching from. We love hearing from all of you. Doctor, your garden philosophy is beautiful, it is hopeful, and it is backed by the beautiful science of our living and breathing bodies. But as our viewers are waking up on this beautiful Saturday morning, I know that many of them are sitting there and they are thinking to themselves, but my garden is different. My joint is too far gone. My doctor told me it is bone on bone. Does this beautiful philosophy of yours still apply, even in the most severe of all cases?
That is the most important and the most profound question of all, and the answer is a profound and a beautiful yes. A garden is always alive, and there is always hope. And the beautiful and living proof of this is in the story of one of my greatest and my wisest teachers. He was not a doctor or a famous scientist. He was a patient of mine from over 20 years ago now, an elderly gentleman who was in his 80s. This is what I call the gardener's story.
And the source text for our video today paints a very difficult and a very painful picture of this gentleman's life at that time. His X-ray showed what doctors so often and so hopelessly call a bone-on-bone knee. It was severe late-stage osteoarthritis. He could only walk a few painful steps at a time with the help of a walking stick, and he had a profound and a very painful limp. He was in a very real and a very sad way a prisoner in his own home, and his doctors had told him that his only hope, a full knee replacement surgery, was not an option for him because of his other health issues. In a way, they had given up on him.
They had. He was sent to me, a young physiotherapist at the time, almost as an act of desperation from his loving family, just to see if there was anything at all that we could do to help him. And I must be honest with you, Ben. At the time, even I did not have much hope. His knee was so very painful, so very stiff, and so very weak. But we started with just one single simple goal. His knee could not fully straighten. He was walking on a constantly bent knee, which was making everything so much worse. So we began with just one single simple exercise. I taught him how to gently and mindfully try and straighten his knee. It was very painful for him. But this man, he had a spirit that was so very strong, he did not give up. Where so many others would have stopped, he persisted. He went home, and he created a new routine for himself. Every single day he would practice this one simple and very painful movement. He was planting the first tiny seed of hope in a beautiful garden that had been abandoned for a very, very long time.
And over the next 3 months of that consistent and very brave work with these tiny baby steps, a small and beautiful miracle began to happen. He very, very slowly improved his knee movement until it was almost completely straight. And because he could now walk on a straight and a more stable leg, his mobility began to improve and his pain began to lessen. And for the very first time in a very long time, he could see a little bit of progress. He could see a small green sprout that was growing in his abandoned garden.
And so, with this new and beautiful hope, he was now ready to tend his garden a little more. We kept it very, very simple. I introduced just one single strengthening exercise. His main and most important goal was to be able to walk again with dignity. So we worked on the beautiful muscles that are needed for walking, his quads and his glutes. I taught him how to do a small and a very gentle chair squat. And at first he could literally do just one single repetition, and it was very painful for him. And his knee made a loud and an impressive grating noise while he was doing it. But again, this man was so very determined. He went home and he added this one single squat to his daily routine.
And the source text for our video today describes his incredible and his very inspiring progress. After just a few days, he was doing 2 squats, and after 3 weeks, he was managing to do 5 repetitions twice every single day. And slowly and surely, in these tiny and beautiful baby steps, he managed to progress to the point that 3 months later, this beautiful man in his 80s was doing 3 sets of 15 repetitions twice every single day. And as a result of all of this beautiful and patient work, he could now stand up from a chair with ease. He was walking longer and longer distances with much less pain.
And one day, I remember it so very clearly, I discharged him from my care. And I asked him, if the doctors offered you the knee replacement surgery, now would you take it? And he looked at me, and he smiled a very big smile, and he said, no, I do not need it.
And what is so incredible and so profound about the story, doctor, is that his X-ray looked exactly the same at the end of those 6 months as it did at the start. The machine of his knee had not changed at all, but the living and beautiful garden all around it, the strength, the movement, the resilience of his muscles and his spirit had been completely and totally transformed. The exercises had given him a knee that was more capable and more resilient, despite the severe arthritis.
He passed away about 5 years later, and his son told me that even up until his final weeks of his life, this beautiful and determined man was still on his feet, and he was still doing his daily exercises. He had learned how to tend his own beautiful garden, and in those last 5 years of his life, he had a quality of life, a freedom, and a dignity that he never would have had otherwise. He was my greatest teacher.
That is a truly beautiful and a blessed story, doctor. It is a powerful testament to the incredible God-given resilience of the human body and of the human spirit. That is one of the most powerful and hopeful stories that we have ever shared on this channel, doctor. It is a perfect story for this beautiful Saturday morning, for all of our viewers at home who are so deeply inspired by this beautiful gardener story and who want to begin tending to their own gardens this weekend. What is the beginner's gardening guide? What are the simple and the beautiful rules that we can all follow?
Yes, the beautiful and inspiring story of our gardener teaches us 3 very simple and very profound rules for tending to our own joints. The first and the most important rule of all is that you must start gently and you must progress slowly. You cannot plant a new and a beautiful garden in a single afternoon. You must be patient. You must be gentle.
And the source text for our video gives us a beautiful and a very practical tool for this. It is the simple pain scale. As you are doing your gentle exercises to help with your chronic joint pain, you should try to keep any discomfort that you feel below a 4 out of a scale of 10. A little bit of gentle discomfort is okay. That is the signal for growth. That is the feeling of the garden being worked. But you must never ever push into a sharp and a severe pain. This is the beautiful art of listening to your garden. And this is a critical skill for your long-term senior health. So we must be patient and we must listen to our bodies. What is the second rule of our beautiful gardening, doctor?
The second rule is that you must always use the right tools. A good gardener knows that he needs different tools for different jobs. And for the beautiful garden of your joints, you need two very important types of tools: the stretching exercises and the strengthening exercises.
And the source text for our video gives us a beautiful example of this. The stretching exercises like the gentle knee extension that your patient practiced so diligently are what help to improve the movement and the flexibility of the joint. They are like gently tilling the soil to prepare it for new growth. And the strengthening exercises, like the beautiful and the simple chair squat, are what build the strong and the supportive muscles all around the joint. They are like building a beautiful and a very protective fence around your precious garden. A good and a complete plan for relieving your chronic joint pain must always include both of these beautiful tools.
So, we must use both the stretching and the strengthening tools. It is a complete and a very holistic approach. Now, what is the third and the final rule, Doctor?
The final and the most important rule of all is that consistency is key. And the source text gives us a perfect and a very beautiful analogy for this. You must learn to think of your joint exercises in the very same way that you think of brushing your teeth. You do it every single day, not just when you have a toothache.
That is exactly right. You do not just water your garden once a week and then expect it to grow and to be beautiful. You must give it a little bit of water and a little bit of sunlight every single day. It is the gentle and the very consistent daily act of care that creates the most profound and the most lasting healing for your joint pain. This is the true secret to a lifetime of beautiful senior health. It is a truly blessed and a wonderful thing, Doctor, to see our daily routines not as simple chores, but as beautiful and sacred acts of tending to the precious garden that we have been given.
That is a beautiful and a very hopeful message to end on, Doctor. Thank you for sharing your incredible wisdom with us today. And for all of you who are watching at home, if you found this guide empowering and it gave you a new and a more hopeful way to think about your joints, please give this video a like. It truly helps other people who may be living in fear to be able to find this life-changing information. And be sure to share it with a friend or a family member who you know needs to hear this beautiful and hopeful message. If you have not already, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel. It is completely free, and it ensures that you will not miss our next deep dive into your health and your well-being. We would be so honored to have you as a part of our growing community. And for our community discussion today, we would love to know what is one small gardening task that you will do for the beautiful garden of your joints this weekend. Please share your first step in the comments below. And finally, it is absolutely essential that you speak with your personal doctor or a physical therapist before starting any new exercise routine, especially if you have a history of joint pain or injury. Please remember that our conversation today is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for the direct medical advice from your own trusted physician. Thank you for being with us. Be well.